Hello out there in Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District. Hi, everyone. It is your Congressman, Jamie Raskin, coming to you this Friday, November the 5th, with my favorite time of the week, Local Hero, where we get to spotlight the people who make Maryland's 8th District such an extraordinary place and who've gotten us through the manifold crises of our days. And I've got a wonderful local hero for you today, my friend Sue Wronsky, who is a wife, a mom of 3, a grandmom even of 2, and she is a volunteer advocate with the Alzheimer's Association, which is how I know her, and she has been a very active champion of caregivers for people with Alzheimer's and for making progress on the disease. And she has been my ambassador, which is what they call the people who are the emissaries to public officials, as well as working with Senator Van Hollen. And so I thought this would be a wonderful way for us to showcase, well, I'm going to ask Sue for the exact title now, because I know it's a little bit in transition, but it's something like Alzheimer and Family Caregivers Month. And so in any event, Sue, I'll ask you to tell us exactly what it is we're observing and celebrating. But here on Local Hero, we're celebrating you for everything that I know you to be doing to champion the cause of both cure and treatment of Alzheimer's, and also supporting the families that are so much involved in the front lines of taking care of people. So congratulations, Sue.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm just so touched and thrilled to be here with you. So, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Any chance that I get to be able to raise awareness about the disease of Alzheimer's and its impact, not only on folks with the disease, but on their caregivers is an opportunity that I will gladly take. So, and you pretty much did have it right. Alzheimer's is a National Family Caregivers Awareness Month. And this is just a month, I mean, throughout the year, we're working to support caregivers, but we kind of highlight it. And it's not just the Alzheimer's Association. There are causes across the board. There are caregivers, especially in the health industry, as you know, doing care work every single day for many different reasons. So, but with the Alzheimer's Association, we kind of step up some of our programs. We target things more towards caregiving, and we just try to make a little bit more, put out a little bit more information about the impact that this really dementia and Alzheimer's has, particularly on caregivers during November.
Yeah, you lost your mom, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2002.
I did.
And tell us a little bit what that was like, because I know that there are just thousands and thousands of people who live in Maryland who can relate to your situation.
Absolutely. My mom was diagnosed in way back in 1991. She was only 63. She had what we call early or younger onset Alzheimer's. Back then, the diagnosis process was a bit longer than it is now. So she had actually probably been showing symptoms of the disease for a few years before she was finally diagnosed. And our family became caregivers. We became family caregivers. She was able, thankfully in our case, to live at home for the 11 years that she lived with the disease, with my dad as her primary caregiver. I'm one of 7 kids, which was another fortunate thing for my family because we all just stepped in. I have local siblings that were up in the Syracuse area where my parents lived that jumped in, rotated evenings during the week to help my dad. Those of us who were out of town were coming into town on a rotating basis on weekends to support and help. I was what we term as a long distance caregiver, which not only was being there physically during my shift, if you want to call it that, but it was also keeping up with what was going on when I was back home, you know, and my dad updating us with different things that was happening with my mom's health and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, I was 28 and I had 3 young kids and I basically was losing my mom as I was caregiving for her. My dad was an incredible caregiver. He did ask for help. He was, my dad was a retired Marine, and he was the type that when you're given a problem, you deal with it and you take it on. But he was also very willing to accept help when it was offered. But it was tough on him. My dad was such an advocate for caregivers. He used to say, if the caregiver crashes, everything falls apart. And believe it or not, 6 weeks after my mom passed away, My father was having triple bypass surgery because he was ignoring his own heart issues, which is such a common thing that happens. Caregivers often will put aside their own health issues because they're putting their loved one first, and it's just sort of the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
So I know that you grew up in New York, but you've lived also in Jersey. You made your way in the early 2000s here to Maryland. We're so thrilled that you live in Potomac. And, I can imagine a lot of people, after being through a wrenching trauma like that, would prefer just not to think of it. But you really threw yourself into the Alzheimer's Association and helping people. And I wonder if you would tell us what it's like to work with the Alzheimer's Association and what this whole ambassadorial foreign service is about within the Alzheimer's community.
Well, I think I became an advocate really because of my dad. I mean, he took it on. He was doing support groups, and he was on the board of directors for the chapter up in New York where his parents were. He just took it on fully. But a friend of his challenged him to do so. When my mom was diagnosed, first, my dad was just kind of trying to hang on as best he could, and he went to visit some dear friends of theirs. We called them my Uncle Jim and my Aunt Kate, and my Uncle Jim said, "What are you doing about this, Marty?" And my dad said, "Oh, well, we found some support groups and I'm trying." And my Uncle Jim said, No, what are you doing? No one knows. You need to talk about this. No one knows what you're going through as well as you know what you're going through. This is something you need to do." And to be honest, when that story trickled down to myself and my siblings, and I was a little bit irritated, frankly, because I thought, who is he to tell my dad that this is, what he should be doing? But my dad kind of looked at it the opposite way. He said, "I'm living this. I can talk about it." And that's what I do. I do it in honor of my dad. And of course, in memory of my mom. And my dad did pass away back in 2013. But, I think this is true with anything. When you're going to volunteer and when you're going to advocate for something, no one knows your story like you know your story. So to talk about it and to try to raise awareness is what advocacy is really, really all about. And so we as an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association, we come and we talk to our legislators like you and like Senator Van Hollen and even our state legislators. I mean, I've worked with some of my District 16 delegates and Senator Lee, and we go to Annapolis every year for our state advocacy day. But we learn the important issues that are going on both at the state level and at the federal level. And the smart folks in our National Public Policy Office do a great job targeting certain pieces of legislation that grow through the Alzheimer's Association, but also that have grown elsewhere. And we look at it and say, this is legislation that we can get on board with. So
it's an enormously effective and cohesive lobby for families that are dealing with Alzheimer's. And so you've invited me, and I've gotten to go to some of the runs, some of the walks, the outdoor stuff I love. What are some of the other kinds of things people can get involved with at the grassroots level?
Advocacy for sure. I would say that if you've experienced, and we even have more and more advocates every year who are living with the disease themselves. So anyone can advocate. Caregivers are especially effective with it. We do have our Walk to End Alzheimer's. It's the biggest fundraiser across the board for Alzheimer's. We have another big fundraiser. It's called The Longest Day, and that's held in June on the longest day of the year. That sort of started with the concept of for every day for someone living with Alzheimer's and their caregivers feels like the longest day of the year. So we kind of use that symbolism, and we come up with activities, everything from my family has played trivia the last few years. We have raised money that way, which is a lot of fun. So, and then there's also, there's education programs, there's community education programs for those living with Alzheimer's. We go out into assisted livings, talk about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. There is just a whole myriad of different things that folks can get involved with. I mean, go to alz.org and there's just so much there. It's overwhelming.
All right, well, Sue, for your fantastic activism and your nonstop education of me and other public officials and people in the community, we're recognizing you as our local hero. And so thanks for staying so strong and being such a magnificent representative of the Alzheimer's Association and the whole community. And thank you for agreeing to be our local hero this first week in November.
Congressman, it has been completely my pleasure. Your support for our causes and our legislative asks and our funding is enormously, we are so gratified by all of your support. You haven't been personally touched by the disease, but I always tell people how interested you are in hearing about our cause and what a delight it is when we have the chance to come in and visit with you. So thank you so much, and your wonderful staff for giving me this opportunity.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Sue.